Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 Commission on the City Plan meeting. Just got a few rules to read before I'll have Les call the meeting to order. Just a reminder that this is a web-based meeting, so we're operating under the following procedures. This session is being audio recorded just like every other CCP meeting. Please be advised that today we are also recording the video of the proceedings. To ensure sound quality, the default rule for this meeting is that everyone will remain on mute. Commissioners and staff will generally remain on mute except when speaking or voting. Applicants and members of the public should have their video off unless you're presenting. During public hearings, all of the normal rules, including stating and now spelling your name and address, still apply. We will read the public hearing rules at the start of the first public hearing of the meeting. I'm just reading them now. Please use the raise your hand feature for staff to know that you've raised your hand to speak. If you're speaking at this meeting and have an exhibit to submit to the commission, which was not distributed in advance of the meeting with the rest of the materials, please indicate that you wish to submit an exhibit. You'll need to provide a description of the exhibit so that the commission and all members of the public may review it. In addition, you will be required to email the exhibit to me or take a photograph and email it to staff, who will include it in the permanent records of the commission. Members of the public may only speak during an open public hearing. If a member of the public speaks outside of a public hearing or creates an audio or video disruption, they will be manually ejected from the meeting upon recommendation of staff or the chair. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Les.
Okay, thank you. So we will call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock and roll call and seating of alternatives. Who's doing the roll call this evening? Is Melinda, do you have the list, or Dan, are you doing that?
I'll do it. I'm going to unmute the members right now.
Okay. So if all the members would say your name.
Jason Corder.
Swaranjit Singh.
Kathy Warzika.
And I think that's it, isn't it? Dan?
That is Mike. Mike is supposed to be on, but I don't see him yet. So I'll let you know when he signs in.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. And so we will be seating both Jason and Sinj, right?
Correct.
As alternates, okay? Sounds good. So roll call and seating of alternatives has been completed. Approval of the minutes from April 21st, 2020. Those were sent out earlier for everybody's purview. Does anybody have any errors or omissions? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion. This is Kathy.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
And who is that? Who's that, Jason?
Yes, that's me.
Okay. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, is there any opposition? No. Okay, and I will abstain only because I was not at the last meeting, so I can't verify that they were accurate or not. So I will abstain.
Okay.
And communications, we have a referral from the town of Sprague in relation to zoning regulations. This was in the list of documents that were available to us on the city's website. Jason, or not Jason, Dan, would you like to discuss that? You or Deanne?
Yeah, Deanne is going to talk about that.
Okay.
Good evening. Hi, everyone. So we have this referral from the town of Sprague. They're having a public hearing on Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020 at 7 p.m. They are setting a moratorium. They want to have it effective 14 days after the notice of adoption of the regulation, which is the regulation is the moratoria, which is to last for 1 year or until they do new regulations. And it relates to recreational campgrounds and recreation facilities in any zone. I don't have any comments as the planner here for the city. I don't know if the commission has any members, but basically they are not, what the moratorium does is they don't allow for any applications to come in for that use during the time frame. So would be effective for 1 year or until new regulations came into effect if they came in faster. Anyone have any questions for me about it?
Any questions?
Okay.
If not, there's no action to be taken on this. Is that correct, Deanne?
Nope.
Just
No,
for-
there's not. I mean, sometimes in the past, you guys have had me send a letter saying that there's no intermunicipal impact, but we don't have to do that. We did that for an application a month ago, but we don't have to do that unless you wanted to do that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. As long as we acknowledge that it exists, that should be good enough on this one.
So I'd prefer not to do a letter unless you actually want me to. I don't think you don't have to take a motion on it or anything.
Right. Unless somebody wants to, I don't think we need to write a letter on that.
All right.
Okay. We can go back to the agenda. Okay, we have new business, public hearings and potential action on the following applications. We have special permit number 20-03, and that's located at 77 to 91 Main Street. Request is for a mixed-use building with 42 residential units, studio and one bedroom, and 10,288 square feet of commercial tenant space. Application and property of New England Rose LLC, Assessors Map 102, Block 6, Lot 15, Zone CC. I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'd like to second that motion. Jason?
Okay, and everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? None. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into this public hearing. I would suspect the applicant has a presentation.
Absolutely. We have Attorney Bill Sweeney here tonight and the architect for the project, but I'm going to turn it over to Bill to start if you'd like.
Okay, absolutely. You bet.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
I just want to know, I went out there today and is it the building that has the Chinese restaurant in it? Yes, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
It didn't look like it was big enough.
Well, let me.
Let Attorney Sweeney is going to talk about the
Yeah.
project.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's all. I just wanted to know where it was. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Kathy, we're going to show you some plans as well, and I'll try to explain why it might look not big enough from the street. So good evening, everyone. My name's Bill Sweeney, for the record. I'm a partner and I'm a land use attorney at the law firm of Tobin Carberry in New London, Connecticut. And it certainly is a pleasure to be before you here tonight, even if it's in this virtual setting. I've only done a couple of these, and I know you're generally new to this mode of public hearing. So please bear with us. We're going to try to do the best we can to explain the application and show you the plans that we've developed for the project. As Mr. King indicated, I'm appearing tonight on behalf of New England Rose LLC, which is the owner of 77 and 91 Main Street in downtown Norwich. And joining me tonight as well, I think you can see him on the Zoom call, is Stefan Nuslopoulos, who is our client's architect. As some of you may be aware, this site is actually two buildings. It's the building with the Chinese restaurant, as Ms. Warzika indicated, but it's also the building next door. But it's on a single lot. It's a two-building complex, which is historically been known as both the Bulletin Building and the Richards buildings. This property is about 0.22 acres in size. It lies within your Chelsea Central zoning district. And these buildings were built back in the 1860s, and they historically housed Norwich's First National Bank and a dry goods store on the site. So it's not just the single building, but it's actually two buildings in width, and that might answer the question that was raised at the outset. The complex itself lies between Main Street and Water Street, and it's actually built into the steep topography of Jail Hill, which rises up above downtown up to Church Street. Some of you may recall, who have been in the community for a while, that these buildings were proposed to be completely renovated as a heritage discovery museum back in the 1990s. The ground floor commercial spaces were built out. For a while, NCDC had their offices in the building on Main Street, but the upper floors that were supposed to be for this heritage museum were never completed. They were left in rough sort of construction status, and they've been basically empty for most of the last 3 decades. And there really hasn't been any activity other than those ground floor commercial spaces. The property changed hands, went into a developer who ultimately lost it in foreclosure. And back in 2018, our client, New England Rose LLC, bought the property out of foreclosure. And since 2018, has been working on a financing package to actually fund the redevelopment of the site, to adaptively reuse the building for a mixed-use commercial and residential development. Now that financing has been secured, and we are proceeding this year with local approvals for the change of use of the building. In fact, in March of this year, we appeared before the Zoning Board of Appeals to seek certain variances to allow the project to proceed. And I'll talk about those a little bit later tonight as well. But tonight before you, we've submitted an application for a special permit pursuant to section 2.6.4.9 of your zoning regulations. Those are your Chelsea Central District regulations. And our proposal is to renovate the interior of this 2-building complex into a mixed-use building. A building with 42 studio and 1-bedroom apartments, associated amenity space for those apartments, those residential uses, and to preserve and renovate the street front commercial spaces on both Main and Water Streets. I think it's very critical to understand and to note that our redevelopment proposal is limited to the interior buildings, the interior of the complex and the buildings only. We are maintaining and we're preserving the historic brick facade of the exterior of the complex. And in fact, we're not proposing any exterior site work at all as part of the special permit application. I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask in a second that our architect walk you through his architectural plan set for these internal renovations, to talk about the plans on a floor-by-floor basis. And then I'm going to come back after he's done and discuss our compliance with the requirements of the Chelsea Central District, your mixed-use building provisions, and your special permit criteria. And I said before, we are new to this type of meeting environment just like you are, so please bear with us. We're going to try to work with your staff to display our plans and to walk you through them so that you really understand our vision for the site. With that, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Stefan, and if Dan could put up our design plans, I'd appreciate it at this time.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Stefan Nushopoulos for the record. I'm the architect on the project, and again, like Bill said, this is the first time I'm actually doing a virtual presentation, so please bear with me. What Deanna has on the computer right now is basically a schematic drawing that shows in green the studio apartments that we're proposing, and in it looks pinkish on this screen, the 1-bedroom. The building itself, actually the buildings themselves, are built into a hill between Main Street and Water Street. And on the Main Street side, we have 3 floors. Well, on the Water Street side, we have 5 floors. So 2 of the floors actually built into the side of the Main Street side. All the storefronts, all the street front usage are being commercial. We're maintaining them as commercial, while the rest of it is being residential. Like Bill said, we're proposing 42 units and over 10,000 square feet of commercial. The 5th floor and 4th floor are basically typical. The 3rd floor and the 2nd floor are slightly different than the rest of the building. We're providing a main elevator basically in the center of the 2 buildings where the 2 join together. Thank you, Dana. And introducing an additional fire escape stair on the north side of the building. The north side of the building empties into, I would say, not even a courtyard, but almost like a joint walkway between the adjacent building where Strange Brew is, that connects Main Street and Water Street. So we're using that as a second means of egress for the apartments throughout the building. The other stair on the south side of the building is an existing stair that we're utilizing. I'm assuming it was built when the museum was being proposed a while back ago, but it's in excellent shape. It's steel and concrete stair, so we decided to maintain that. On the second floor, now the second floor, when I refer to the second floor, it's from the Water Street side. Half of it does not have any natural light or windows because it's built into the hill. That's the retaining wall that's holding up Main Street. On the back side of it, we have the mechanical spaces for the building, electrical rooms, and a common area that's going to be used for laundry, storage, bike storage facilities. That's going to be accessible to all the tenants of the 42 units themselves. The units are typical. They're all good size, square footage wise. The studios average approximately 450 square feet, while the one bedrooms average 650 square feet. So they're good size units. The building itself, each floor has, especially on the second and third floor, they're all different elevations. That's why the elevator was located in the center, and it's a double-loaded elevator. Even though it's a 5-story, we refer to it as a 5-story building, the elevator is going to make approximately 9 stops to accommodate all the different elevations within the building. This way will provide ADA compliance with the building itself. By doing so and sharing the corridor, we're also providing ADA compliance for the commercial spaces that are facing Main Street. Presently, they do not have handicap accessibility because of the sloped sidewalk and the way the entrances are located. But by providing an additional entrance from the back of the unit themselves, where the corridor is, we provide accessibility for those units also. So now, over 95% of the building is handicap accessible, where before hardly any of it was.
Stefan, can I
Like I
interrupt
said,
you?
I mean, we are restoring.
Stefan, this is Bill Sweeney. Can I just interrupt? Can we move to the third
Absolutely.
floor plan just so that they can see what the third floor looks like? We were looking at the second floor off Water Street, but you're talking about the third floor. It'd be good to look at that floor. Go
Right,
ahead.
this is the third floor that's on the screen right now. Another way to describe the third floor was the floor that used to house the NCDC space on the north side of the building. If you look at the existing plan on the top level, it still shows the layout of NCDC's offices on the north side of the building. And you can get a good idea of different buildings that are joined together and where the elevations exist. Matter of fact, within one of the buildings themselves, if you look at, we have to provide even a ramp to accommodate the change of elevations between the two buildings themselves. But the entrance is somewhere in the middle on the Main Street side, which is the handicap accessibility, which you enter into a lobby, which is, then you can get either the elevator or you can use the stairs to navigate the corridor. Within that lobby, we have the mailboxes for the units and everything else. This third and fourth floor, the fourth and fifth floor are much more simpler because each building has their own elevations, floor elevations. So it's a lot easier to navigate. And that's where most of the units are also. I mean, it's a gorgeous building. It's a very structurally sound building. We're in the process right now of going through it with the structural engineers to make sure that whatever work we do, we don't compromise any of the existing structure because it is an old building. And the other thing is, because we are working with the Historic Commission, we want to make sure that we do everything correctly so we can get the credits for it, obviously. Knowing that we're going for the Historic Commission, that should give you a good idea of the quality of construction that's going to be done, because we have to restore it to the original or to their standards. We're in the process right now of locating and every little detail and putting it on paper so we can show it to them and work with them to make sure that they're comfortable with what we're doing. So it's going to be a gem once it's complete. It's going to be a beautiful building. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. It's such a simple project as far as how we're proposing. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
If there's no questions, I'm happy to proceed with the presentation, and you can look at that drawing, or you can look at me in the box, whatever you'd rather do. And we can always come back to questions you have on design as well. Thank you, Stefan. I appreciate that, and I think that presentation covered a lot of the highlights of the design. Tonight, though, as the Commission on the City Plan, to grant a special permit, you have to make sure that we demonstrate compliance with various sections of your regulations. We've properly notified all property owners within 200 feet of this hearing, but we've also complied with the specific requirements, as I said before, of the Chelsea Central District, including provisions for site design considerations, parking requirements, and additional special permit criteria. And I just, for the record, just want to go over those really quickly with you. In terms of site design considerations, as we mentioned previously, there are no exterior changes proposed to the building. We're going to be seeking historic tax credits to help finance the renovation of the building. We're going to keep it in its historic exterior form, and we're not making any changes. And therefore, we are requesting, which is permitted in the Chelsea Central District regulations, a waiver of formal site plan requirements. And we did submit that with our application. As I said, we're going to maintain the historic facade. We have city sidewalks already ringing both frontages of the buildings, and any signage that's put up on the buildings for the commercial spaces will have to comply with the applicable requirements for the Chelsea Central District as we generate and develop tenants. In regard to parking, there is no on-site parking available on the site, and that's because the complex literally occupies the entire parcel. And that's consistent with the historic configuration of the site that dates back to 1860. From a zoning perspective, though, Section 5.1.3.4 of your regulations makes clear that no off-street parking or loading facilities are required for the reuse of existing buildings located in the Chelsea Central District. And as such, there's no waiver of any parking requirements, and there's no requirement for us to demonstrate that we have parking. Now, that being said, we do acknowledge that for a mixed-use commercial and residential building to be successful economically, we have to have off-street parking. And it has to be made available in a ready fashion to support the project from an operational standpoint, even if we don't have a requirement, a legal requirement to do so for zoning. And I do want to and I put this in our application materials, but I just want to reiterate to the commission that we've had discussions with Judy Rizzuto at the Norwich Parking Commission. There are approximately 30 parking spaces available for long-term lease across the street from this site in the Main Street garage, and our client intends, if approved and upon build out, to actually secure those spaces. We've also understand that there will be a significant number of additional spaces freed up within the Main Street garage in 2021 when the Mercantile Exchange parking lease comes up for renewal. And I know the Parking Commission is already looking at ways to reduce the number of parking spaces that are allocated in the garage because they're simply not being used right now in any effective way. I would also note that we are in close proximity to the Intermodal Transportation Center. There's approximately 160 free public spaces that are readily available in that facility. They can't be leased because of the terms of the federal financing for that project, but they can be used by the general public, and they can be used even for overnight parking. We feel that the existing off-street parking spaces existing, in addition to the existing on-street parking on Main Street and Water Street, should be more than sufficient to meet the needs of the project for its future residents, for the employees of the commercial spaces on Water and Main, and for the customers of those businesses. We'd also add that the permit also meets the intent and the purpose of the additional special permit criteria for the Chelsea Central District. Bottom line is this project is going to create new opportunities for people to live and work in the downtown. Due to the abundance of parking in proximity to the project, we're not going to aggravate parking conditions or create any traffic circulation issues. And most importantly, the project is really about the revitalization of a downtown historic building complex that's been basically primarily vacant for almost 3 decades. And that's entirely consistent with the goals of the downtown plan of development. It's not going to impact adjacent properties or future development opportunities in any adverse ways. And we're preserving a historic building, using historic tax credits to keep a building that fits into the fabric of downtown Norwich. It's a win-win-win across the board when it comes to the Chelsea Central requirements. I do want to also point out that this is a mixed-use commercial building. Your zoning regulations in section 6.5 have specific requirements for mixed-use buildings. We've complied with those provisions, or we have obtained variances of them prior to coming before you. This is an existing complex with already existing commercial spaces, so we're not adding commercial spaces to a solely residential building. Each of the proposed dwelling units has its own designated kitchen and bathroom facility. However, due to the configuration of the buildings between Main and Water, and Stefan spoke about this, and the corresponding grade change, we do have units on the same level of Main Street, basically the back of house on Main Street facing Water Street, and on the second level of the building, one up from the Water Street side. That's typically not allowed in mixed-use buildings, but we obtained a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals to allow that based on the unique topography we're dealing with. And likewise, we have more residential space than commercial space by gross square footage in the building. Again, that's not typically allowed by the zoning regulations. You're supposed to have a 50-50 split, but this is a historic building, and the upper levels just simply are not viable for commercial use. We obtained a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals from that requirement as well. Finally, and I know I've been talking, I'm going to try to wrap it up quickly. You are required to look at your general special permit criteria when evaluating our application. I addressed those criteria in quite some depth in my cover letter to the application. I just want to highlight again a few key considerations for you to consider tonight. This is a redevelopment of an underutilized historic building. It will provide newly renovated commercial space and new residential opportunities. Opportunities, quite frankly, that this market in southeastern Connecticut, small units, is exactly what the market is demanding right now. And that's consistent with the Norwich Plan of Conservation and Development. We are going to preserve a historic building complex. We're going to maintain storefront commercial spaces. And the residents that will live in this building will support those spaces, as well as other businesses that are up and coming in the downtown Chelsea Central District. I think the preservation of the building provides a character in that area that complements other historic buildings in the area. We're going to be preserving that through the use of historic tax credits. There's no impact to traffic safety. We're not discouraging the redevelopment of other properties. We've got public water, public sewer, stormwater, all available to the site, all with available capacity. And we're going to have a developer and professional property management company that will sustain this building for years to come. For all of these reasons, I would ask you tonight to look favorably upon our requests for a waiver of the formal site plan requirement, and then B, to grant approval of the special permit application that we've put before you. I thank you for your time and attention tonight. We're here if you have any questions, whether it's a regulatory or whether it's a design question, be happy to try to answer those for you. And I would reserve the right to rebuttal after the public portion of the hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, great presentation. That's a very interesting project. That's something that
Hi,
building.
honey.
Pardon?
Emma. Listen, Daddy split it.
Okay, okay, well, let's keep going here. Does anybody have questions of the applicant before we go to the public at this point?
Les
Yes.
King, this is Michael Lane calling.
Hey, Mike, how are you? Welcome to the meeting.
I'm good. Well, I've been in the meeting. I just can't get into Zoom. And I've tried so many times, they've blocked me anyway. But one of the questions I had for Bill is this building's going to depend on tax credits. There are 40 studio apartments here, like they're almost like what? So they're almost like single room occupancy. Is there any advantage to studio apartments over 2 or 3 bedroom houses in downtowns getting these tax credits, or is that just irrelevant?
No, I think there was a decision made by the developer in this case to not go for instance, affordable tax credits, but to put market rate single studio and single bedroom apartments. And because of the historic nature of the building, we had that avenue available for the financing. What's surprising about this building is it's hard to tell when you're on Main Street because literally the block of buildings completely blocks the view. But you get inside this building, and Kathy probably knows this back in the days when Walter Way was renovating, inside that building for the Discovery Museum. There are amazing views of the harbor from literally the second floor up on the water, on the Water Street side. So yeah, they are small units. We believe that the historic tax credit is going to provide the financing that we need to renovate the building. We are doing market rate units, and this is quite frankly very similar to the type of units that are being built down in New London and Groton right now to support the growth of EV. And I've been involved in a lot of those projects. What we're finding are the people that are relocating to this region. They are younger. They are somewhat transient in nature. They are not living in apartments with families. They're not multiple bedrooms, which is a good thing from a tax revenue standpoint. People want smaller, more manageable apartments that they can afford, but they want the modern conveniences. They want great views. They want to be close to restaurants and other retail. There are projects like this that are taking place in cities like New London right now. It really hasn't happened in Norwich. I'm hoping that this is one of the first to start that catalyst. But no, we think that this is the right financing scheme to get this off the ground. And it's why it's taken almost 2 years to come up with the financing package to make it work.
Okay,
I hope that
thank you,
answers your
Bill.
question, Mike.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Any other commission members have a question of the applicant?
Yes, it's Deanna. I just want to let you know you need to see Mike Lahan because he's been participating. He came in about 7:20 p.m. So I think we should make a note about that on our in the minutes. But I think we should seat him. Can you just say that we're going to seat him?
Absolutely. Yes, he will be seated.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
If commission members don't have questions, I'll wait. But I do have some comments as well on this application that I want to do before we go to the public as well.
Yeah, okay. If no commission members have any questions, Deanne, go right ahead.
All right, so I'm just going to talk about my memo real quick, just a few different things. So I wanted to say that, and Attorney Sweeney, if you could answer a few of the questions for me. I did a memo, and the commission has it. Dan, yeah, there it is. On the second page is a few items that I just wanted to clarify. So, and if you could respond to them. So we're looking at number 3 is about bike racks downtown. Have you thought about that? Because it's in our regulations talking about bike storage and refer that. Are you considering bike racks for your residents?
Yeah, that was a comment that you had provided earlier. And certainly we are, and we're more than happy to try to locate that in a place that doesn't impinge on a public right-of-way. We are limited, but I think we can find some areas on the site. Absolutely willing to do that, particularly because the marketplaces we're finding is, and it's hard even for me to believe, but you have people who are gainfully employed, who have great jobs, who may be sharing a car or carpooling, and biking is becoming a more and more acceptable means for travel to and from your place of work and your place of leisure. I'm doing a project in New London. I did a project in New London 2 years ago. We don't only have a bike rack, we have a skateboard rack. And because we have workers from EB skateboarding to work. Now, I don't know if anybody's going to skateboard from Norwich to New London, but the point is that alternative modes of transportation other than cars, absolutely, particularly with the younger generation right now that's looking for these types of units, we're more than happy to add a bike rack to the project, and we do accept that as a condition of approval to try to locate one on the site.
Thank you. That's one of my, okay, so now let's go down to just a couple of them. And then why don't you talk a little bit about how you're going to handle recycling, trash storage, trash removal from that site the way it is, if you could talk about that.
Absolutely. In fact, that was one of the better, that was a really good comment that we received from your office. Stefan has actually done some research on it. We have a plan, and Stefan, if you could just talk about it a little bit, and it's actually very similar to something I'm using at the Central Hall project in Mystic right now. But Stefan, if you could just talk a little bit about where we're going with that.
Yes, we are providing a garbage compactor with a chute on each floor. It's going to be located on the north side of the building, adjacent to the proposed stair tower that we're putting there. On the bottom floor, yeah, this is a good one. Yeah, that was a good one. When you get to the second floor, the stair basically ends there because we do not need means of egress for the commercial spaces on Water Street. And the garbage disposal with its own room. The room is approximately 6 by 11. It's going to empty out on the same side of the north side of the street. Presently, within that passageway between Strange Brew and this particular building, if you drive by there or if you go there now, you're going to see 15 to 20 blue 90-quart containers, which is kind of unsightly. What we're proposing is two-yard containers that's going to be rolled out to the sidewalk by either Waste Management of Willimantic or Sterling Superior. We talked to both of them. We've got proposals from both of them. They both love the concept. It's easy for them. They don't want to go more than a 2-yard because it makes it a little difficult for their manpower to push it to the sidewalk. So they, depending how often we're going to need their services, they can do it daily actually. They will provide the size of the containers. The 2-yard container, both of them feel that it's a 2-day operation, but we're going to take 2 just in case. And as the building grows in the sense of more tenants moving to the building, we'll accommodate accordingly. But again, each floor adjacent to the stair tower will have a disposable room with a chute that will take it all the way down to the compactor on the first floor, and that opens into that passageway. And individuals from the building will put it into the 2-yard container that will be rolled out by either Sterling Superior again or Waste Management. I can't tell you which one is going to get the contract yet. I apologize, but I don't know that yet.
It's okay. Do you know if, and this kind of leads into that question, is if there's going to be like a property manager living on site? Because another project here in the city, and I won't give names, there's a lot of complaints about their trash dumpsters. They go out for these apartments and they don't go back in, and they just sit out all the time. They're on our sidewalks. They're just unattractive. They're really detracting from a lot of things we're doing downtown. So we just want to make sure if you're using the dumpsters that we can have someone to call and say, hey, bring them in. We want them stored away. So the intention is not to keep them out on the curbs or, making it, just a blighted look. We want to make it really attractive. So I appreciate that how you're handling the trash.
Yes, a very lengthy discussion with the clients to make sure that we, before we finalize the design on this, how it was going to be managed. And yes, they will have a manager on site taking care of this. Now, as far as the compactors, as far as the containers themselves, they will be rolled in and out by the waste company, so they're not going to be left on the
Yeah.
sidewalk themselves.
Thank you.
What the manager will be doing is basically putting the compacted trash into those containers, and that eliminates the problem. That should eliminate the unsightly 20 blue 90-quart containers on the site too. Now, I believe some of those blue containers don't belong to us anyway. I think they belong to Strange Brew and the other buildings too. So maybe we can work with
That's okay.
those. Well, maybe
That's fine, Stefan. I think you gave a good response. I think you're okay with that, what you're doing. I just wanted to make sure that you had planned for it. So thank you for explaining that. I'm just going to hit a couple more things in my memo, if you don't mind. This is just if you're going to provide signage, we would like it to be some kind of attractive, historic-like looking signage for the building. I don't know if the owner has, a lot of times buildings have a name to them, and they name their building, they name the apartments accordingly. So if you're going to be doing something like that there, we would really like an attractive signage looking, especially period signage kind of to go along with the facade of the building. I'm also looking the same thing.
Just on that, we don't have any signage proposed for the residential component yet, but we realize whatever we propose has to meet your signage regulations, and it will be consistent with the historic nature of the building because of the historic tax credits we're using. And we're going to do the same thing for our commercial tenants as well.
Absolutely. And the same thing with the lighting, because now that I know that you're going for the historic tax credits, we want to make sure that the exterior lighting is appropriate there on that building. And then the last thing that I had there is more just because the property is really just a building. There's not really any site work, which is the reason that you're asking for the site plan waiver. So there's not a whole lot of opportunity for landscaping, but this is where it gives those opportunities to have some potted plants, some really nice landscaping out on the streets. Have you put any thought into that?
Yeah, if I could answer that, to the extent that we're not blocking a town right-of-way or creating an accessibility issue, we're more than welcome to consider that or to work with your department on that. I think particularly it's fairly narrow sidewalk on the Main Street side, but it's a little bit of a wider sidewalk on Water Street, and then that faces out into the open area behind the courthouse. I think there's probably more opportunities there, but that's absolutely something that we'd be willing to work with. I don't know what the process is if we were to put something on the public sidewalk, but I think there's something we could work out probably with the city, even if it's the same idea. I think when we have awnings that hang a sidewalk, I think there's a public works, and there may be something Mike Driscoll has a sign, but we'd be more than happy to try to work with you on that, because anything we can do to improve that appearance only helps us. Again, as long as we're not creating any safety issues, we're open to that.
No, I agree. So I think that the two things I'd like to make sure that we do consider is some kind of bike racks, working with the city on the bike racks, and landscaping, potted landscaping on the front of the buildings as well. Okay. So that's that. So the last thing I wanted to say to the commission before you go for public comment or have more questions for me is I do have an exhibit list. I'm going to ask Dan, can you show the exhibit list real quick? I'd like to waive the reading of the exhibit list unless, I know that there's public here, but this is available, it's on the website, the exhibits that we have. So if the commission's okay, I'd like to waive reading those to you tonight. In my memo, I have 8 bullet points, but I would like to, that I would recommend if you should make a motion to approve this application later on, is that you include all those conditions, as well as the working with the city on the location of planters, exterior planters, and bicycle rack for this project. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. The notifications were mailed out on time. There's nothing that's outstanding at this point. Again, if you look, Dan, can you put put back up the list of exhibits? If anyone we'll just leave this up for a moment. If anyone from the commission hasn't had a chance to look at any of these or have specific questions, they can ask me and I can call those up, and tell you what certain things said. So I think, Les, I'm going to turn it back to you, and you can ask the commission if they have any members, and then if you don't mind, we can go to the public.
Okay, sounds good. Do any members have any questions of Deanne or of the exhibit list? The exhibit list is also online.
Or the applicants at this point. You can ask the applicants questions as well.
Yes.
Les,
Yes,
this is Michael Lane again.
okay.
I wanted to ask about, on the side of the building next to 77 is the old alleyway that runs down from Main Street to Water Street, which could be significant to this building, although I assume that that alleyway belongs to the city. But is there any thought about lighting that space, making sure that it's taken care of? I know that now there are a lot of barrels and other things down, that are kept there. But has any thought been given to what can be done with that alleyway?
Does the applicant like to answer that?
Yeah, I apologize. I was trying to bring up the vision appraisal map for that, because my recollection, and Stefan, please correct me if you think I'm incorrect. No, I just confirmed it. So that alleyway is part of the city right away. It's an approved alleyway. It's part of the city road network. So, we don't have any proposals for the city property. Our intent, I think, was, as Stefan suggested, is we wanted to try to not exacerbate and hopefully improve the sort of storage of trash containers in that alleyway. To the extent where the city may want to put some lighting in that alleyway, in their alleyway, and they want to try to affix it to the building, we're more than welcome to work with them on that. But we haven't proposed any lighting of the city alleyway at this point.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks.
But that is something that the city ought to be looking at regardless of this project.
I think that's a fair comment. Absolutely. I'm familiar with that alleyway.
Okay. Any other commission members have questions of either Deanne or the applicant before we go to the public? Hearing none, we will go to the public. Is there anybody?
Oh, Les,
Yes.
I think Jason, were you asking a question? I think, Jason, were you starting to ask a question?
I'm sorry, I might have hit the button, but I like the project.
Okay, all right. So Les, if you don't mind going up to the public, and we're not going to do where there's people in favor or against or anything like that, proposition to just any comments about the application. It just makes it easier to move that along, okay?
I got that, yes.
Okay, yeah, so is there anybody in the public that's online with us that would like to make comments for or against? If you would like to speak, please state your name and address before you talk. And it is open to the public, so any public who would like to speak.
So Les, at this point, I'm going to unmute everybody, and we'll give a few moments for people to speak up.
Yep.
And if everyone could go one at a time, that'd be appreciated.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Okay, so it looks like the public is unmuted. So is there anybody in the public that would like to have a comment for or against? Any public member that would like to speak on this application? And for the third time, is there any public that would like to speak on this application? Okay, hearing none.
Okay, so Les, since we don't have any comments from the public at this time, I'm going to ask Attorney Sweeney. Well, firstly, does anybody have any questions to the commission of any of these exhibits here that they want me to read into the record or anything like that out loud, or have any questions about? Okay. So Attorney Sweeney, I'm going to turn it back to you and see if you have anything that you want to say before you wrap up and we close the public hearing.
Thank you, Deanna. I just want to thank, the staff, Deanna and Dan, who welcomed us into the city earlier this year with a full pre-app meeting. The city's been nothing but helpful in terms of trying to get this project off the ground. It's long overdue, and there's some really great things happening in our downtown, and we've got a lot of great businesses. Some of them that are reopening tomorrow night in a limited capacity. I hope I might see some of you down there tomorrow. I intend to be down there. But we haven't seen the rebirth of housing in this latest boom. And I think it's so important to have people living in downtown. And this is an opportunity to take a historic building and get people living in downtown and to provide, units that are actually in market demand right now. So I'm more than happy to answer any further questions, but strongly would encourage you to waive our site plan requirement and to grant our special permit tonight. We are anxious to get moving. I talked with my client just earlier today. They're already beginning, to release Stefan for construction drawings. They're ready to go. We want to be in that building this year doing renovations. And we want to be able to lease these units as soon as possible. So it's exciting, and I hope we have your support tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, Attorney Sweeney, thank you very much. Great presentation. We appreciate that. Okay,
So
so
Les,
yeah, go ahead.
So Les, if you don't have any more comments from the commission members, what I would ask once you close the public hearing is, and then you need to first take action on that waiver request of the site plan requirement. It isn't necessary for the site plan because there really is no site work at all and related to this project. MPU doesn't have any issues with anything. That they do need to do any work, it would be within their right of way. They're not concerned about it. So there's not really any concern to have a site plan. That would just be the special permit being filed on the land records. And again, 8 bullet points here that I have for a favorable, if you're going to vote favorable approval after you did the waiver. And including, again, I'd like recognizing the landscaping and the bicycle. So that's all I have to say for you, unless you have more questions for me.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Deanne? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Singh. I'll second it.
Oh, I think you made the motion, Singh.
Yep, I made the motion to.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we have a second on that motion?
I'd like to second that motion.
And that's Jason. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed. Having said and discussed everything, I think we're ready to entertain a motion on the possibility of waiving the submission of a site plan for this project. So we will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the A2 survey. This is Jason.
Okay,
Site plan.
Site plan, sorry.
okay, so
Second the motion.
okay,
That
so
was
there's
Mike Lehan.
yeah, so there's been a motion that's been proposed and seconded to waive submission of a site plan. Is there any discussion?
Do we need to state the reason why? Because usually you do.
You can, Kathy. I stated it. You just, but you can restate. There's no site disturbance related to this project.
Okay, so Jason,
If you'd like to state that.
yeah, Jason, would you like to say that as part of your motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve a waiver of the site plan, which, because it does not disturb the outside of the building.
Okay, and the seconder on that, I think was Singe. Who seconded it?
You had Michael
I did.
Lehan was the second.
Okay.
So I resecond.
Okay, that's
Okay.
second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to waive the submission of a site plan signify by saying aye.
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 Is there any opposition or abstentions? Okay, that has passed unanimously to waive the site plan. We are ready. We would entertain a motion to approve the special permit with hopefully
I'm sorry. I will make a motion to approve the special permit. I believe that this application is consistent with our downtown plan of conservation and development, with the conditions, the 8 bullet points that Deanna had outlined for us, and the addition of having a bike rack somewhere on their property or close to it, or whatever kind of agreement they can make with the city. Also, that they address having some landscaping, whether it be in containers or whatever, something that is acceptable to the planning staff I think that would add to the project. And I loved, Michael, your comment about the alleyway. And I think that if people are going to be living here, I think the town and the city and the applicant should work together to put some kind of a lighting plan and maintenance plan for that alleyway. And I know that it's not, I'm not saying that they should do it, but I think they would be willing to, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think they'd be willing to work with the city on that, because I think it will need to be done for this project.
Okay.
So those are my 3 additional comments.
Okay, so we have the motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion. This is
And that's
Michael Land.
Michael Land. Okay, is there any other discussion on the motion to approve? Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I
Right.
Any opposition or abstentions? It has passed unanimously, and it looks like a great project. Attorney Bill Sweeney, thank you and your team so much for bringing that to the city. That's great.
Thank you for the time tonight, guys. Really appreciate it. Look forward to having you for a grand opening sometime
Great.
next year.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Good luck with the rest of your meeting tonight. Take care, everyone.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's continue on. We have a sub number 431, 621 West Thames Street.
Nope. 612,
What's that?
612 West Thames.
Oh, I'm sorry, 612 West Thames Street. Request for a 2-lot re-subdivision on a parcel that includes an existing dwelling. Property and application of PPFR LLC, Karen Perek. The assessor's map 129, block 1, lot 24, zone multi-family. This is I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
I second that motion.
Well, we need a motion first.
Oh,
You gonna
I make a motion to open up the hearing.
Okay, Jason makes the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Kathy seconds it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, is there any opposition or abstentions?
I have a question, please.
Yes.
I'm in a butter of this property, and I received a notification. Should I recuse myself?
That's a good
Yes.
question. I would suspect so, yeah.
Yes.
To be on the safe side.
Yes, but Jason, so
Okay.
Jason, you have to recuse yourself before they open the public hearing, so I think that we should probably have a new motion to open the public hearing, because you shouldn't vote not opening it, because you should recuse yourself before we open the public hearing. So,
Okay.
so Jason, what I would say is you can't participate at all. You can listen, but you can't participate at all in this meeting because you're in a butter and you're a member of the commission.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna mute you.
Okay, so Jason is no longer sitting as a voting member on this application, so we will go back and entertain a motion to open the public hearing with all the rest of the members still seated. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a
So
second?
Michael.
Yep.
Good.
Second.
We got Michael making the motion and Kathy seconding it.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any oppositions or abstentions? Hearing none, the public hearing is open. Is there an applicant presentation on this?
Yes, good evening.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, good evening. Pete Parent with CHA Consulting, formerly CME Associates, representing the applicant. For those of you that may not be familiar with the site's location, it's directly across from the Norwich Inn and Spa and just west of the Cove View Towers development. The original subdivision that created the lot that we're proposing to subdivide was actually split off of the Cove View Towers parcel. And at that time, they chose to select an existing wetland and pond area as the basic dividing line between the two parcels, which created this lot of about 6 acres with the existing house 612 on it. The applicant is currently proposing to subdivide off about 1/3 of an acre associated with 612 in order to facilitate the sale of that property and retain the rest of the land for future development. We did provide this conceptual plan that Dan has up for you to look at just to prove that the lot is developable, with sewer, water, and utilities. But there is actually no plan to construct what is shown here. This is just a concept plan to prove that the lot is a developable lot. We spoke with wetlands. As you can see, the sewer connection, there's easements in place that would allow a future development to connect to the sewer in Trading Cove Drive via easement across the Cove View Towers development lot. And there's also provisions there that would allow for a drainage connection should it be needed in the future. Water and other utilities would come off of Route 32 via additional easements, and access to the larger lot and to the residential lot. There's an easement in place that allows access to Cove View Towers driveway out to 32. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer questions. Like I said, it's pretty straightforward. We're not proposing any actual work at this time, just to subdivide off that parcel to allow for the sale of 612, and any future development on the remaining land would obviously have to come before the city again. A couple of comments on the proposal that I'd like to touch on.
Pete, may I interrupt you for one? Pete, may I interrupt you for 1 second? This is Deanna Rhodes.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm interrupting for a second just to let the commission know the meeting was scheduled from 7 to 8:30, and it's now 8 o'clock. And I'm not trying to rush anything along, but I want you to know that we may get automatically cut off at 8:30. So, so if you have succinct questions, if we can kind of keep it really succinct, so we make sure that we finish the whole meeting by 8:30, would be helpful. Okay, Pete, I'm sorry.
No problem at all. So there's just 2 items in the comment letter that we received from the city that I'd like to touch on. One is in regards to easements being required for the sanitary sewer. We do recognize that we need to provide a formal easement over the remaining lot, lot 24, to allow for future connection of lot 24.1 to the sanitary sewer. And we will provide a description of that following your approval, and get that squared away with legal at the city. And then as far as the conservation easement is concerned, the applicant would request to provide the fee in lieu. Obviously, the 100-foot wide conservation easement would require about 1.5 acres of the remaining land to be under conservation easement, which is about 1/3 of the remaining land. And the regulations require a minimum of 5%, only be 1/3 of an acre, and is really not usable for any recreation space given the topography. So that's our request. And other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm going to jump in, Dan, if you don't mind, about the conservation easement for the commission.
Sure.
So we recognize, Dan, can you get to that map, please, again? With the topography, the one with the topography. So that we were asking for, Dan, why don't you show starting where we were looking for from the, there's a very ledgy area there, and then it's very steep topography in that area. As well as if you come down, you can see it's really tight in here. We're in the upland regulated area, and there's also houses, dwellings right adjacent to this steep area. And we just thought that it's really important. We're not talking about a conservation area that would be open to the public for recreation, Pete. We're talking about a conservation area that is a non-disturbance area that's stays as a natural buffer. And this slopes are pretty steep there. We've got ledge, we've got wetlands nearby. We can understand potentially not the width of the 100 feet, and the reason why it was 100 is because that one boundary line is 100 feet, and we were just thinking that it would be pretty easy to go straight across for you. I still feel really, I really think that we need to have a conservation easement back there. The slopes are steep, and I think for future development, either whether for this lot or for anything, for this house or for anything else that goes there, I think there should be some protection of those slopes and the adjacent properties with leaving that alone. So I think the commission should definitely consider that, and we should discuss it further. The $100 is, and our regulations are very old, just so you know that $100 for fee in lieu of open space is very, very low. It's not what today's standards are, but it's not about the money. It's really about protecting those slopes and protecting the existing development that's adjacent from being impacted for development on this lot.
Okay,
That's my comment there.
okay. Anybody have any questions on the conservation easement proposal? Okay, and go ahead, the applicant, go right ahead.
Okay, yeah, so certainly we're willing to provide some conservation easement there. Just the 100 feet really does impact a large portion of the lot, and we feel that, a retaining wall or something there for a future development that would have to be reviewed by the city when they came before you is a possibility there to accommodate some of that slope. If we could meet somewhere in the middle on that, I think, we're more than happy to provide something, but 100 feet is a large portion of the lot. That's our only take on it.
Okay, okay, we'll discuss that then as we go through further on this. So, okay, yeah, and the applicant, do you
Les,
have,
if I may.
absolutely. Go ahead, Dan.
Deanna has something to say, but she's muted. So Deanna, if you could unmute. Nobody could hear you.
Hold on. So I definitely want the commission, in their deliberations and discussion to really talk about this before we close the public hearing, because the applicant needs to we would like them to agree to it. So I don't want to set a standard and not have their opportunity to discuss it. But that ledge outcrop, is significant. And again, the wetlands on this property are pretty significant in the slopes. But again, I completely get what you're saying as far as the acreage amount and the ability to have a retaining wall. But I just think the commission needs to discuss it. But this is Dan's memo, so I would really like Dan to be but Dan and I spoke about it at length. That's why I'm chiming in. But Dan, do you have any outstanding issues that you want to bring up to Pete at this point?
I think that, yeah, we already talked about the easements regarding the sewer, so that's covered. The other main issue was the conservation easement. And just make sure that it's updated to include the erosion and sediment control details reflecting the 2002 state guidelines. There's the typical subdivision checkbox of the commission can discuss the orientation of the proposed dwelling to take advantage of passive solar. And everything else is kind of boilerplate changes that need to be made before the final plan is submitted. I have a number of.
Okay, a quick question there, Dan. You said the orientation of the proposed. Try that again.
The house to take advantage of passive solar.
Yeah.
But the house is technically theoretical, so I don't know. I would defer to Deanna if that would be discussed when they come back to develop something at that point.
Yeah,
no, not really. It's part of the statutes, and so usually it is addressed during the subdivision so that it becomes a consideration when, so it's not, because the plot plan comes in later on and does not necessarily have that consideration, but it is in the statutes to look at it when you're doing subdivision. So this would be the time. I think the applicant, Pete, should talk about, is the way it's situated work for passive solar at this point?
I mean, so it does have a southerly face to it. It's not the ideal southwesterly phasing, but the way that it's orientated right now takes the most advantage of the topography and any potential view. So that's kind of why it's orientated the way it is.
But I think as far as it's not completely contrary, so I don't think it's such an issue as long as it's not, turned completely, because that's the statute really wants houses to be taking advantage of solar advantageous to for development.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So
Dan, I'm going to jump in really quickly too on you have these conditions, but one thing that's yeah, so not the last bullet point said if new easements are necessary, easements definitely are necessary, so that the city attorney needs the time to review it. And I did have one more question. Can you go back to the drawing too, Dan, real fast, the subdivision. Go back towards the front, okay, and there was an easement in the front that's already there, Pete, for the sight line, and sight line easement. Did that work it was never done correctly because of that wall there for that existing house? Is that going to happen with that subdivision off of that individual lot to create the smaller lot for the house here where the driveway is? Are you going to be correcting that sight line for that house?
Well, so the house currently accesses the driveway for Coveview Towers, and nothing's going to change. They're going to continue to access the driveway for Coveview Towers. Certainly, if that work was never completed, and it needs to be completed in order for the future development or for Coveview Towers, for that matter, to really have the legal sightline that they're required to have. Certainly, that's something we can discuss, but it wasn't proposed as part of this subdivision package, no.
Okay, but the easements are already in place to do that. It looks like basically a 20-foot wide grading easement in favor for the sightline improvement.
Those
that's already there, but
those easements were put in place when Coveview Towers was approved and when this original split of these two pieces was conceived.
Okay, and then just quickly to clarify, you said the lot, I don't want to take too much time, but the 24-1 is the new lot number, correct? Or is the big lot
Correct.
24?
24-1 is the new lot, yes.
Okay, so the easement is going to be over 24-1 to get to lot 24 for the future sewer, correct?
It'll be
But you
over
said the other way.
24 to allow 24-1 to connect if their existing septic were ever to fail.
So the easement's going to be, okay, because right now the sewer comes through lot 24-1 right now. So it's an easement over 24-1 to get for lot 24.
Oh, I'm sorry. The smaller lot with the existing house is 24-1. The larger
Okay,
piece.
that's where the confusion is. All right. So normally where the existing house is, we call that the same lot number. We add the other to 24. That's why the confusion is there.
Okay.
Okay, so we could talk about the clarification of those numbers later. We just want to make sure that we got it right.
Yeah, if that's the city's preference, we can certainly change that on the maps before we submit the final.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, because we only have 18 minutes left, I'm going to move along quickly. I'm going to get it back to, unless Dan has any more comments.
Just one more comment. When we were out there for a site visit, there's an existing 2-car brown garage. We just wanted the commission to add into the approval motion that come down as part of the development.
Okay, there's the
And I would say the reason why, is that's acceptable, you said, Pete?
Yes.
Oh, perfect, because we don't want to create a nonconformity by having just a structure on its own lot sitting there as a garage. So thank you, we appreciate that. And if you could give us a time frame for when that can come down, maybe, as soon as possible kind of thing.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So we also have a long exhibit list here that I'm showing on the screen. I'd ask for the permission to waive the reading of all that at this point, just in the interest of time, if everyone's agreeable to that.
Let's waive that.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, we'll waive that. That's fine. It's part of the record.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Okay.
So I think the last thing to discuss is if you want to have a conservation easement on this lot or not, and then you can ask the public if they have any comments.
Right. So any commission member like to have a part of the discussion of conservation easement?
Can I see the subdivision plan again? And I don't know if I did not go out to the back. Okay, so let me just ask. So could we do the 100 feet up until, because it looks like there's ledge on the northerly side, and then come back and follow the 110 contour? Because it looks like that's the part that's really steep.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Go to 120 and then go, follow down to 110 and then just stay 110. I mean, I think that, or at least, I don't even have a problem with 100 feet. I think I agree with you, Deanna. I think it's a steep slope. You don't want it disturbed. If they want to build a retaining wall, they can come back and show us the details for it. I mean, I don't know. I think we
But you
should
wouldn't,
have.
but you wouldn't be able, but Kathy, you wouldn't be able to do a retaining wall in the, if we
If
made
there
that
was a
conservation easement, they would
Right.
not be able to do a retaining wall in that area.
Unless there's some wording that said, if you want to build a retaining wall, you have to come back to the commission. I think that it's important enough to, because that would be a pretty hefty retaining wall.
That's what I'm thinking too.
So that was one question, one comment. And my other one, so the frontage for this is that little strip that says it's 25 feet, but the access to the house is off of somebody else's property? Is that right?
Correct. They have an access easement to utilize the driveway for Coveview Towers for access to these lots. And that was agreed upon when this lot was originally split off the Coveview Towers lot. Sight lines on Route 32 in that area are not very good. So to have additional driveways in this area.
All right. All right. I think we should have that conservation easement.
Okay, conservation, the 100 foot?
Yeah, I think 100 feet would cover it.
Okay, and do you want to put a stipulation in there? Should they want to change it and do a wall that they would come back to the planning commission? Is that part of your proposal too, or just?
I don't know. What do you think, Deanna?
I think it gets very tricky because when you put a conservation easement in land, you know, it's people have that expectation that it's protected land, you know, and then all of a sudden it's butter, and all of a sudden they say, okay, we're going to put we want to put a retaining wall. We want to do that 15 feet from that property line or something. That totally would, you know, ruin the whole conservation or the whole purpose of the conservation easement, which is not getting slope. You know, I just think it's one of the, you know, kind of one or the other. It's like, you know, you either do it or you don't, or you're making less than the 100. But I saw that ledge area, and again, I think that it's close to those houses down there. You know, I just wanted to provide some protection. And also, don't forget, this isn't a CAM area. This is in the coastal area. We did get a coastal review, and they would like to see it again when it does come back for development, if it ends up being a multifamily instead of being a single family dwelling. But so I just think it kind of hits all those targets by having a conservation easement back there.
Yep. Okay. I agree with you on that.
Okay, so that's. Any other commission member have any discussion on the conservation easement that they would like to put forward?
Les, this is Michael Lane.
Yes.
I unfortunately am only here by telephone, and I haven't seen any of these drawings. If you, between what what Deanna and Kathy are talking about, this 100 feet, and the developer, proponent for the developer, is talking about something smaller. I can't tell from where I sit because I can't see anything. Is there a possibility to do anything smaller that he would agree to, or we just go forward with 100 feet and just leave it that way?
So Pete, could you comment to that? What would you be willing to do as a conservation easement to protect that area, that slope?
Well, so in agreement with what Kathy was saying originally, to say elevation 110, that would be about 60 to 75 feet. We could draw a line that would basically come down to, say, elevation 110 and then connect to that angle point on the eastern side where the wetlands ends.
Okay, I have to add one little thing about that. Where it shows the very, very steep area, I would go 100 feet and then reduce it down to 110. But that one area, it looks, and Deanna, you were out there, I'm sure. I wasn't, but it looks like that is so steep and there's all ledge. So if you go 100 feet out, like, what is that, 46 feet, and then maybe another 50 feet, and then from there follow the 110, something like that, or even 120, what is it, 110, yeah, 115 or something like that. I mean, I think Deanna, you know what I'm just looking at the contours. It's hard to really judge.
And that's really what I'm looking at, Kathy, because I was not able to get back there, to be honest with you, because of all the brush. And I didn't want to go trekking through there right now. And but I just, from looking at just the topography of this map, I just have some concerns about that slope. And I just don't want to see, you know, it be cleared, the trees be cleared there and those kind of things. I'd be very concerned about that, the impact to that slope.
Right, and I think anything, you know, like you're saying, anything below 110 is probably too steep to even build a retaining wall to fix. But between 110 and 120, you know, a 10-foot high retaining wall, while, you know, a major undertaking, is not unreasonable for something that could potentially be developed here. You know, we'd certainly to connect from that angle point that you're talking about on the west side by the ledge, coming out.
Yep.
To protect that ledge, then coming down to 110 and then tying into that angle point on the eastern side.
Yeah, exactly, just like that.
So that's what we'll agree. Did you agree to that conservation easement, Peter, like that?
Yes, we can do that. I'll send a sketch along for your approval and then we can get it going.
Okay, that's great. And just kind of keeping everybody on the time clock here. It's 8:20, so
Well,
I don't want to lose everyone.
Yeah, well, yeah, and we're not going to push this through just because we only have 10 minutes. So, Mike.
No, but I just want you to know where we're at time-wise.
Right. So, Mike, are you satisfied with that, or do you want to? You know, we do have.
No, I'm satisfied with that. I think that if we can find some compromise that everybody's happy with, it works perfectly.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone, on the conservation easement.
Yeah.
Les, if you didn't mind going to the public so they have an opportunity to comment next, I think that's important while they're calling in, because this is the last public hearing.
Right. That's where we're at right now. So, is there any public that has any comments for or against this application?
So Les, I've unmuted everyone.
You've unmuted everybody. Is there any public out there? It's okay. Is there any public out there that has any comments for or against? And one more time, is there any public out there that has any comments for or against? Okay, there's no comments for or against. Does the applicant or Dan or Deanne have anything else they'd like to add before we go to close the public hearing, or do commission members have any other questions before we close the public hearing?
Just one quick question. So did they submit a coastal site plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know. And are there any comments about that?
It was very short. Hold on. Oh, Dan, you have it. You have that folder.
The
That's all right.
comment was,
It was just yesterday.
with no development plan at this time, and therefore we find the lot split consistent at this time with the goals and policies of the Connecticut Coastal Management Act. They'd like to see it back again if there's going to be a multifamily development proposed in the future.
Is there there's coastal flood hazard area on the site? No, just shoreline?
No. Just the upland area. They're just within that coastal boundary.
Okay, very good.
Okay, you satisfied, Kathy?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, any other questions? If not, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
That was Michael.
I'll second. Same.
Sing seconds.
Seconding.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any abstentions or opposition? Okay, public hearing is closed. We can go to a, we'll entertain a motion at this point, I guess really for approval.
Well, first we have to act on the coastal site plan.
Well, right, that's right. Yeah, so let's go ahead and entertain a motion for the coastal site plan.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve the coastal site plan with the condition that the conservation easement be provided. So to protect that sensitive steep slope, and that the actual location of the conservation easement has to be acceptable to our planner. And let me see if there was anything else. And then all of the other conditions that are listed by the town planner.
Yeah, the conditions for approval of the project, we're just on the coastal site plan right now.
I know, they should all be in there for both of them.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. So that's the, on the table. Do we have any second?
Oh, and the garage. The
Right.
garage needs to be removed. But I have a question, a quick question. I know we don't have that much time. I think we need some kind of condition to, or something to ensure that that garage is removed, either a bond or that we don't sign the Mylar until they remove the garage. Because otherwise it could end up staying there.
Yep, so I agree. So again, the public hearing's closed. I shouldn't be commenting at this point, but I think that the suggestion, Kathy, of the bond or the Mylars, I just don't know how quickly it can come down, but that's fine too. Usually, you have up to 2 more extension times for filing a Mylar. So that really pushes them to demolish that garage now. So if you want to do that prior to the filing of the Mylars, that's fine too.
So, and the bond would have to be acceptable to the town, to the planner.
Yeah, one or the other. I mean, I think you could do one or the other.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So decide which one you'd prefer.
Okay, so those would be my comments.
Okay, that's your proposal, and do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a proposal and a second on the coastal site plan. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the project.
I'll make a motion, since it was so convoluted the last time, to do the same conditions to the site plan, or subdivision, I mean, and approve it with the condition that they provide the conservation easement and they remove the garage, and that they meet all of the conditions outlined in the planner's report. Is that it? I think that's it.
And Claire, I just want to, Kathy, I just want to clarify that we're going to say prior to the filing the Mylars that the garage needs to come down, correct?
Either that or bond it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's the proposal. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, Mike, that was a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any abstentions or opposition? Hearing none, it is approved unanimously. Thank you very much for the presentation. Good luck on the project.
I have 2 extension requests. I don't know, it's going to take me a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Deanna, if I can.
Yes. Yes.
Should we reseat Jason at this point?
Yes, so if you'd reseat Jason.
And
Okay.
I'll just note that I don't know if this is going to cut off automatically. But
So what I want to do is, well, that's what I want to ask right now. Can I do a special meeting? I'd like to do a special meeting to address these next week. Can we do that? Do I have members that would be available next Tuesday? Maybe an earlier meeting than this, like at 5 o'clock, just to do the 2 extensions?
Yes.
I'll be available.
I will not be available.
Okay, who do we have? Do we have 3 people?
Yep, Jason.
Jason?
Michael?
Michael? Les, are you available at 5 o'clock on Tuesday?
No,
Yep.
I've got a meeting with Community Development Office at 5.
Okay, what about Singh? Singh, 5 o'clock on Tuesday?
I can make it. I can make it.
Okay, so I'm going to just ask that we're going to do those items I'm going to have next Tuesday at 5 o'clock. We'll have a Zoom meeting. I'll send you an invite.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. And you can also
So
talk about the POCD implementation committee at the same time. So it's 8:29. I guess unless somebody has anything urgent, I guess we're going to entertain a motion to adjourn at this point.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay.
We have a second. Any discussion? I don't think we have a choice. We're about to be cut off.
Who was the second? I didn't hear who the second was.
I'll
Michael
Who was
second
the
will.
it.
second?
I'll second it.
Kathy.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Somebody will.
All right.
Okay, so we are done with the meeting. It's 8:29. Do we want to hang around and see if it automatically cuts off just for our own future information?
I don't think so. Good night, everyone. I'll send you a meeting invite for the special meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Guys, be safe.
Bye.
Okay, good night.